every Tuesday for High Society with your host, David Malmo-Levine, here on Pot TV.
If you've got the munchies, nothing else will do but the Candy Island. Speaking of the munchies, it's true.
I just got over my sugar addiction. So
I know.
That's my big thing. I'm getting rid of sugar.
But we are going to be talking about the munchies in one way or another with our next guest, because we're going to be talking about the pot laws. Yeah,
there hasn't been a hotter issue, I think, in Canada in the last probably 6 months and perhaps even in the last 20 years than the decriminalization and what the federal government and the court and law systems are going to do about marijuana possession. And we are joined by Rielle Capler. She is from the BC Compassion Club. She's joining us to talk a little bit about this yesterday because there's been two things that have come out in the paper in the last little while. The first one was that 50% of people believed in the decriminalization of marijuana, and then another one yesterday where an Ontario law court actually said the federal government hasn't done enough to clarify. But why don't we start out talking about what the Compassion Club does, Rielle?
Okay, the Compassion Club is a healthcare center that provides medicinal marijuana to people in need, as well as access to other natural healthcare services like herbalism, natural healing such as holistic nutrition and traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and Reiki.
And now, what kind of medical conditions are we speaking of that people are helped out by marijuana? Maybe you can give us a few examples.
Oh, there's quite a big range. People who have cancer, AIDS, glaucoma, Hep C, fibromyalgia, anorexia, depression.
And for a lot of those situations, it's helping stimulate appetite, which, you know, side effects of chemotherapy, you don't eat, and anorexia, it's obvious. Is that the only reason, is stimulating appetite, or is there more to it than that?
There's pain reduction as well. In glaucoma, it reduces the intraocular pressure, so there's less pressure on the eyes, which helps the situation. It can be good for the immune system as well. For some forms of cancer, can slow the onset or the increase in the growth of cancer cells. For sleep, for depression.
Just for general comfort, it really seems to make a big difference for a lot of people.
And like in MS too, for muscle spasms, it's very good for that too.
Now, the Compassion Club movement has really gained steam in the last number of years in British Columbia and throughout Canada. How much of an effect do you think that that's had on this debate about decriminalizing marijuana and the message that Compassion Clubs are getting out there that this is something that helps people with medical conditions? How much of a difference do you think that's made?
Well, I think Compassion Clubs make a big difference because it shows how cannabis can be distributed in a quasi-legal way, in a way that's responsible, that supplies good quality to people, that makes it a safe environment, and people see that, hey, this can be done a different way. It doesn't have to be the black market. So I do think that has a big
Can you guys be prosecuted right now for what you're doing? I mean, is it possible? Because it's not legalized yet. Is it really even for medical use?
It's not legalized for medical use. It's not legalized in any way for distribution or production. So for medical use, there's kind of two medical users, two groups of medical users. One of them are about 900 to 1,000 people who have signed up for the Canada's medical marijuana access regulations. And those are very difficult.
Sounds a very simple process.
Sounds like there's no red tape involved.
Yeah, none at all. It's a highly bureaucratic process. It's actually being challenged in the courts as well for not being constitutional, because people have to go through you know, two specialists, a doctor, forms, and the doctors are being told by their people not to sign the form.
Well, and the big argument people that want to use medicinal marijuana is that it's denying, the current legal system is denying access to something that could help them medically, and that's in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, isn't it?
That's right. People shouldn't have to choose between their health and their liberty. That's
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, one of the big debates, of course, that we've seen in and out of the papers, whether it's going to happen or not, is what the amount of possession is going to be that you can't be prosecuted for. Now, the number that's being thrown around is 30 grams or less, and you wouldn't be prosecuted in any way. Do you think that that's the right amount? I mean, some people think that's a huge amount. Other people think that that's just fine. How do you feel at the
Fiona tells me it's slightly over an ounce.
Yeah, slightly over an ounce. Not a bale, as I referred to. I thought it was a gigantic amount, but you know, there you go.
It really isn't. I mean, for someone who is using it.
Is that a right amount for people that do need to use it for a medical reason?
I think it's a reasonable amount. I think the problem is it shouldn't really be decriminalized where people are still punished and being given fines. It should be legal for people who need it and for people who want it. If it's not something that's worth punishing at all, you know, it's not worth being made illegal, it shouldn't have a punishment. And that really hurts people, especially who are sick, because it costs money. Fines they're talking about range from $200 to $1,000. People who are sick can't afford that.
You're spending all your money on medication as it is.
That's right.
Do people within the Compassion Club system, do you feel like you're getting close now, like you're making a difference? Because I think part of the frustration for people who believe in this is that it keeps getting booted from the courts to the government, back to the courts, to the government, back and forth. Do you feel like you're making inroads now?
Well, it's been going on for about 30 years. It's really good that Compassion Clubs are doing what they're doing and providing cannabis for people. But it is time for people to stand up and say, you know, to tell the government that we support them, to come out of the closet, say, we support you legalizing cannabis. We don't want to punish sick and vulnerable people in society. And now's the time to push it over the edge, not wait another 30 years.
There were some really, for me, surprising things in the study that was just released that said that 50% of Canadians supported marijuana.
Because we're all getting old.
Well, the surprising one to me is that people that the higher income bracket that you had and the higher education that you had, the stronger the support was. And that's always been associated, you know, high income with a more conservative belief system.
Well, you know, people with higher incomes have access to all sorts of things that people who don't have a high income don't have access to, and it's going to be the same thing with fines. If people are fined, rich people will be able to afford those fines, and poor people won't be able to.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what transpires with this issue. If you want to find out more about the Compassion Club and what they can provide to you if you are suffering from one of the ailments we've been speaking of, you can go to their website, which is thecompassionclub.org, to find out more. And of course, we'll be chatting about this with our guests. We have a police officer, a former police officer.
That's right. It'll be an
interesting. Thank you, Rielle. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break from the BC House, and we'll be back with your news headlines to get you out the door. Hopefully your power's back on, and we'll be back with more Breakfast Television after this. It's time to get on with the show. We have to introduce you. Of course, you already met Rielle Capler, and this is Randy Schooley from Rockpoint PD, joined by Detective Dave. Do we still call you Detective?
Call me Detective.
Detective Dave Aitken. And also, last but not least, we're also joined by somebody who had a great adventure. Her name is Dunya Stefan-Tosi, and she's going to be telling us about the Ship for World Youth. And you've met I'm calling him Chef-orific. Because my uncle
is joining us today, and he's been getting going on the galette.
That's right.
Oh, nicely done, Michael.
Très bien. Very nice. Now, the thing we have to talk about, of course, is what we were just discussing with Rielle, which is the decriminalization of marijuana. And I'm going to throw it over to Detective Dave Aitken. Dave, how do you feel about the decriminalization of marijuana?
I suspected I was going to be put in the center of that.
Well, you know.
I got no real strong issues with it. As a matter of fact, with what Rielle's talking about, the compassion issue, I think it's something that should be exploited. Obviously, it makes people comfortable when they're in distress. What the heck? Well,
how much of your work, because you have worked in a variety of different areas in the police force, including drug enforcement, and how much of a police officer's time is taken up with, you know, guys that have a few joints or, you know, 10 grams or...
Not a lot.
Really?
I think there's different ways to look at the statistics that are involved. People talk themselves into being arrested for possessing small amounts of marijuana. The trafficking and the growing, obviously, are other issues. My drug enforcement experience was essentially heroin and cocaine. So I'm really not qualified to talk about it a whole lot. It just was never a big deal for me. And I think there's valid points to be made for what's going on now, what appears to be the future.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the final outcome is. And we know what the final outcome in the kitchen is going to be because, Michael, you said it so well. Say it again.